The Earth was on its last legs, battered and bruised from centuries of wars, droughts, and the continuous hammering of its so-called superiors. The galaxy's finest species, alien conquerors who had swept through countless worlds, now considered humanity nothing more than a curiosity. Their weapons were devastating, their fleets infinite, and their hatred as cold as space itself. Yet, for some reason, they were terrified. Not of Earth's military, small in number and archaic in comparison to the galactic powers, but of something else, the human will. In the face of overwhelming odds, humanity was the cockroach that refused to die, and every time they crushed it, the creature scurried forward with a defiant fury. The first shot was not fired by the alien fleet, nor was it fired from any high-tech Earth weapon. No, it came from a single soldier, a woman with a face twisted by grief and vengeance. It came from her. Major Sarah Doyle, the last commanding officer of Earth's war-torn military, stood alone on the barren surface of Mars. The red dust beneath her feet swirled as a shudder passed through her bones. Her breath caught in her throat, her fingers twitching against the grip of her pistol, a weapon she had seen her comrades fall beside, a weapon she had used to kill more than she cared to admit. But it was the only weapon she had left. And it was enough. "We don't have the luxury of waiting," she muttered to herself, her voice swallowed by the unfeeling wind. "They mocked us, and now they'll regret it." The distant stars above Mars flickered in the vast blackness, indifferent to the small human drama playing out far below. But the stars were about to witness something humanity had never revealed before, a raw, unrelenting power. For once, it wasn't a weapon. It wasn't an army. It was the soul of a species forced to the brink, desperate enough to fight for its survival. "Major!" a voice crackled through her earpiece. It was her second-in-command, Lieutenant Roland Lang. His voice, though calm, bore the weight of all the decisions that had led to this moment. "The Golden Fleet is moving into position. We're ready to deploy." Sarah's grip tightened on her weapon, her knuckles white, her pulse thumping in her ears. The Golden Fleet, Earth's final, desperate gamble. The fleet was composed of ships once dismissed as obsolete, considered mere relics of a past civilization that had long since fallen into ruin. They had been rebuilt, restructured, and rearmed with what little Earth could scrounge up. But now, they weren't just ships. They were a statement. A middle finger to the invaders who had long believed they could crush humanity like an insect beneath their boot. It wasn't the ships that worried Sarah. It was the weapon. The first alien fleet had mocked humanity's so-called golden ships, seeing only rusted husks clinging to the last remnants of a dying species. They had even dared to broadcast their laughter across the interstellar frequencies, as though mocking the very idea of human resistance. "I'll show them," Sarah said under her breath, her heart pounding with purpose. "I'll show them why they should never underestimate us." Lang's voice came through again, more urgent this time. "Major, the weapons have been activated. You need to give the order. We can't hold them off much longer." She clenched her teeth. Every nerve screamed at her to turn away, to take her last breaths in peace. She had already lost so much. Her family, her friends, the world she once knew. But all of that paled in comparison to the one thing left, the fight. "I'll give the order. But not until it's personal." As the Golden Fleet aligned itself above Mars, Sarah stared at the star-filled horizon. She wasn't just taking the last shot for humanity. She was taking it for everyone who had been erased by the invaders. For every mother who had watched their child die. For every soldier who had fought and fallen in the name of survival. For every human who had ever been crushed under the weight of the galaxy's arrogance. Her grip on the pistol tightened further. In a single motion, she turned and made her way toward the isolated bunker that housed the weapon, the one the aliens had mocked so mercilessly. It was time to make them pay for their hubris. "Activate Golden Cannon," Sarah commanded, her voice unwavering. The facility hummed to life, a low growl that echoed through the walls. The Golden Cannon was a monumental, world-altering weapon, an experimental hybrid of human ingenuity and desperation. It was a device that could release a concentrated beam of power so intense, so destructive, that it could tear apart even the most impenetrable armor, even the alien ships that had mocked Earth. The cannon's core activated with a low thrumming noise, building in intensity. The alien fleet, no longer laughing, now regarded Earth's final weapon with shock. They won't be laughing when this hits them, Sarah whispered to herself, as though the thought was the final thread that held her sanity together. The countdown began, the final seconds stretching into eternity. 5. 4. Her mind flashed to images of her fallen comrades, faces blurred by time, but their voices still ringing in her ears. 3. 2. She could almost hear the alien voices in her mind, the mockery, the cruel laughter that had echoed through their fleets. 1. Fire. The golden cannon released a single, brilliant flash of light, sending a shockwave that rocked the ground beneath Sarah's feet. The sound, too loud to describe, rattled her bones. The alien fleet's hulls, once impervious, were now nothing but fragments in the vacuum of space. Their weapons, powerful as they were, bounced harmlessly off the now radiant surface of the golden ships, the mocking laughter silenced once and for all. The first victory had been won. And humanity, battered but not broken, stood at the precipice of something far greater. This was only the beginning. The fight had only just begun. Major, Lang's voice returned, filled with awe. It's over. We've won. Sarah's voice was cold, her eyes steely. No. Not yet. This was just the first battle. She paused, looking up at the stars once more, a grim smile on her lips. They'll know now. They'll all know. Humanity fights until the very end. And the war, at last, had truly begun. Sarah stood at the helm of the Golden Fleet, her face set in grim determination as the aftermath of the first victory hung heavily in the air. The golden cannon had done its job, but the alien fleet, what was left of it, had retreated, vanishing into the abyss of space with a speed that no human ship could match. She knew this would only be temporary. The enemy would return. They always did. Status report, she demanded, her voice low but filled with a sharp edge. Her comms officer, Lieutenant Lang, did not hesitate. Major, the remaining alien ships are in full retreat. However, our sensors have detected a large fleet, moving from the Sarin Belt. They're still a few days out, but we're sure they'll regroup and attack with even greater force. Sarah's brow furrowed as she looked over the data streaming across her terminal. The battle had been a decisive one, but the aliens were anything but weak. They had sent their best forces to crush humanity's final stand. And still, they had failed. But it wasn't a victory. It was an invitation for more destruction. They won't give us mercy, Sarah muttered, her eyes narrowing. We've made an enemy of the entire galaxy. If we want to survive this, we'll have to strike first. We can't let them rebuild. Lang's voice crackled with urgency. Major, there's more. We've intercepted some comms from the enemy. They're calling this an unexpected turn of events, but their tone. He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. They're calling for reinforcements, but there's also talk of an ancient weapon. Something they believe we can't touch. They're preparing for a counterattack unlike anything we've ever faced. Sarah clenched her fists. Ancient weapon? Her mind raced with possibilities, all of them deadly. What could they be talking about? The aliens had long held an edge in technology, advanced AI, superior weapons, entire fleets designed for domination. But an ancient weapon? Lang, plot a course. I want us to intercept them before they get their reinforcements. Let's take the fight to them. Sarah's voice was unwavering, the weight of the mission pressing down on her shoulders. Understood, Major. But do you think we're ready? Lang asked. The hesitation in his voice was unmistakable, and she could hear the doubt echoing in his tone. After all, they had just unleashed the golden cannon, something no one believed humanity could even dream of, and they had still barely scratched the surface. I don't care if we're ready. We have to be, Sarah snapped. We don't have the luxury of fear. As the fleet moved into position, Sarah's mind swirled with conflicting emotions. She had never planned on being a leader of something so grand. She had once been a soldier, an ordinary officer who was good at getting the job done. But now, she was humanity's last hope. And despite everything, the broken earth, the decimated cities, the loss of her family, she wouldn't let it all slip away now. "Prepare for battle, and get the commander to meet me in the war room," Sarah ordered. She needed answers. There were too many unknowns in the way. What did the enemy know that they didn't? Why were they so confident? A moment later, Captain Reagan walked into the war room, her face as hard as steel. Reagan had fought alongside Sarah through the hardest battles, an experienced officer with a no-nonsense approach to war. The two of them had led Earth's forces to some of their last great victories. Now, they would need each other more than ever. "Reagan, we've got a situation," Sarah began, outlining the data Lang had uncovered. "The enemy is preparing for something big. They've called for reinforcements, and there's mention of an ancient weapon." Reagan raised an eyebrow, her arms crossed. "An ancient weapon? What do we know about it?" "Nothing yet, but it's clear they think it's something humanity can't touch. That's what worries me. And with them still in retreat, I don't trust that they won't launch a counterstrike with everything they have." Sarah's voice had a steely edge to it now. She didn't just want to survive this battle. She wanted to end it. "We need to strike first," Reagan said, her voice tight with purpose. "We know their fleet's movements. If we push forward, we can cut off their reinforcements, hit them before they're ready. But there's one problem." Reagan's eyes narrowed as she placed a map of the star systems before them. "What's that?" Sarah asked, leaning in. "They've been hiding something. The alien fleet we just faced, the one we thought was defeated, wasn't the main force. It was just a diversion," Reagan said, pointing to a hidden zone on the map. "A place so far beyond the reach of Earth's usual defenses." Sarah's stomach twisted. She had known this wasn't going to be easy. "What's beyond there?" "Something worse. The remnants of an ancient alien empire. A place where weapons older than anything we've seen are buried. If they're truly bringing it online, this could turn the tide of the war in their favor." Sarah's mind raced, but she held her composure. "Then we go there. We can't afford to let them reach it. Reagan, I need a plan. Now." As Reagan began outlining a strategy, Sarah's mind drifted back to the night she lost everything, the night her family was wiped out in one fell swoop by the alien invaders. That had been the day her vengeance had been born. The fire that had kept her going since then. The reason she hadn't crumbled under the weight of defeat. The alien race might be powerful, ancient, and ruthless, but humanity wasn't finished yet. They had something the invaders could never understand, something pure, unbreakable, and terrifying. They had will. And it was about time they made the galaxy feel it. The countdown began, and the fleet jumped into hyperspace, pushing the engines to their limit. The crew was silent, tense, yet resolute. The Golden Fleet had fought its first battle, but the true test was ahead. As Sarah stared at the shimmering light of the stars streaking past, she could almost hear the mocking alien laughter in the back of her mind. Not anymore. This time, it was their turn to scream. The silence of space was deafening. For the first time since the Golden Fleet had deployed, Major Sarah Doyle felt the weight of their mission press down on her in an almost suffocating way. Her fingers were white from gripping the cold, metal armrest of her seat. The battle was coming. It was inevitable. And this time, they weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future of humanity. "Major, we've reached the edge of the alien stronghold." Lang's voice crackled through the comms. His tone was steady, but Sarah could hear the tension that lined his words. Sarah gave a brief nod, her eyes scanning the holographic map in front of her. "Bring us in closer," she said, her voice cutting through the air with cold precision. "We strike now. No hesitation." The ship shuddered as the engines pushed them toward the heart of the alien bastion. Ahead of them, the remnants of the enemy fleet began to take shape, dark silhouettes against the swirling cosmic void. They were in range now, and they didn't know it yet, but they would. "Sarah," Captain Reagan's voice came through, sharp and unwavering. "You need to understand something. We've never faced anything like this. Their weapons are older, more powerful than anything we've seen, even the golden cannon. This is it. If we fail here, humanity won't just be wiped out. They'll make sure there's nothing left for anyone to remember we ever existed. Sarah didn't need to hear that. She already knew. Her hand hovered over the comms, but she hesitated before speaking. The stakes had never been higher. This wasn't just another battle, it was the last one. If they failed, Earth would be forgotten, just another name lost to the pages of history. And Sarah would never let that happen. Deploy all squadrons, Sarah ordered. Focus everything on the enemy ships. The Golden Fleet's power is our trump card. We don't hold back. As the orders were passed through the channels, Sarah felt a strange calm settle over her. Her entire life had led to this moment. No matter what happened next, she was ready. The moment the fleet engaged, it was chaos. The vast emptiness of space became a battlefield as laser beams and plasma arcs streaked across the sky. The first wave of alien ships, fierce and unrelenting, advanced with brutal precision. But humanity's ships didn't falter. They swerved, darting through fire, dodging blasts, and returning fire with deadly accuracy. Sarah's eyes locked onto the screen, watching as her ships ripped through the enemy's defenses. But something was wrong. The enemy's ships were starting to glow, pulsating, almost as if they were charging. The ancient weapon was coming online. We need to take those ships down, now! Sarah barked. Lang, what's our status? Major. Lang's voice was filled with urgency. They're activating the weapon. The readings are off the charts. We've never seen anything like it. The air in the command center grew thick with the weight of the impending doom. The Golden Fleet was giving it everything they had, but the enemy's technology, ancient, terrifying, was holding its ground. The energy from the alien weapon was overwhelming, and Sarah knew that if it activated, they would be obliterated in an instant. No, Sarah whispered, as a realization hit her. That's not just any weapon. It's a power source, a superweapon harnessing energy from the very heart of the galaxy. Her eyes flicked to Reagan. If we can't stop it, they'll wipe out every ship in our fleet, and then they'll come for Earth. Reagan's face was grim. We need a plan. Fast. At that moment, Sarah felt it, a tremor in the air, a strange energy that surged through the ship's systems. The Golden Fleet had been holding its ground, but it wasn't enough. Their firepower wasn't enough. They needed to fight smarter, not harder. Lang, initiate the secondary protocol, Sarah ordered, her voice steely. I want everything directed at that weapon's core. We go straight for the heart of their power. The secondary protocol was risky, humanity's last desperate attempt to turn the tide. It wasn't just about blowing things up. It was about disabling the enemy's ability to control their superweapon. Their entire fleet was connected to a singular energy core, one that powered not just their ships, but also their ancient weapon. Roger that, Lang responded, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. Secondary protocol activated. The Golden Fleet changed course. Instead of confronting the alien ships head-on, they split, half of the fleet veering off toward the enemy's central command ship. They would strike directly at the heart of the threat. Sarah's command ship led the way, pushing through the fray with deadly precision. The enemy ships retaliated, launching everything they had at the human fleet. For every strike that hit their shields, 10 others found their mark. The battle was brutal, the cost already too high, but Sarah's focus remained unshaken. We're almost there, Lang shouted, as the ship closed in on the alien command ship. The massive energy readings from the enemy's core pulsed with violent intensity. Now! Sarah shouted. A flash of bright light erupted from their ship as the main cannon activated, releasing a wave of concentrated energy directly at the alien's superweapon's power core. The explosion was unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. The shockwave rocked the ship, throwing everyone to the ground, but the damage had been done. The core was shattered. The remaining alien ships faltered, their weapons systems shutting down in an instant. The tide had turned. The remaining fleet was disabled, its commanders in disarray. Major, Lang's voice broke through the chaos. We've done it. The weapon's offline. Sarah's body sagged in relief. The battle was far from over, but the hardest part was done. Humanity had won this round. But there was a price. The cost was written across the faces of her crew, countless lives lost, sacrifices made. But in the end, it had been worth it. The alien threat had been neutralized, their ancient weapon destroyed. Earth had survived for now. But Sarah knew that this victory wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Lang, set a course for Earth, Sarah said, her voice quiet but determined. We're not done yet. The galaxy will remember the name humanity. As the fleet turned toward home, Sarah gazed out into the black void, a deep, unwavering resolve in her heart. The war had only just begun. The silence that followed the battle was almost worse than the war itself. The broken remnants of the alien fleet drifted, powerless, in the cold vacuum of space. Sarah's hands rested on the command console, her fingers trembling only slightly. She felt the weight of everything, the lives lost, the lives still hanging in the balance, the years of unrelenting struggle. But for the first time in what felt like forever, there was a flicker of hope. The tide had shifted, but the war was far from over. Major Doyle, Lang's voice crackled through the comms. We've got a situation. Sarah didn't need to ask for specifics. The look on Lang's face when he stepped into the command room told her everything she needed to know. The joy of victory was short-lived, and the next challenge loomed large on the horizon. What now? Sarah asked, her voice cold and commanding. Lang handed her a data pad, and Sarah's eyes quickly scanned the information that filled the screen. There were reports from all across the Golden Fleet, damage reports, personnel counts, but something caught her eye in an instant. A transmission, garbled but unmistakably alien in origin, had been intercepted. It's from their highest command, Lang explained. A warning. They've activated a fail-safe. The superweapon was only one piece of a larger plan. They've set in motion something. They're calling it the Galactic Reckoning. Sarah's stomach tightened as the words registered in her mind. Galactic Reckoning. The very name sounded like the final death knell. They're planning something else. Something worse. Reagan's voice came from behind her. She had joined them in the command room, her face grim. What's the message? Lang hesitated before continuing. It's fragmented, but we've decoded part of it. It says, the reckoning will be unleashed. And once begun, it will not end until all of humanity is consumed. You will see our vengeance as we bring the galaxy to its knees. Sarah clenched her jaw, her gaze shifting from the data pad back to the vast, empty space outside the viewport. She'd known the aliens would retaliate, but this? This was different. They weren't just going to crush Earth. They were going to ensure no trace of humanity would remain. The thought sent a cold shiver down her spine. I won't let them destroy us, she said firmly, her voice a sharp contrast to the uncertainty she felt inside. This war isn't over. We've beaten them once, and we'll do it again. But Reagan was already shaking her head. Sarah, we're running out of time. If they've already activated whatever this reckoning is, we need to move faster. We need to get to their central hub. If we don't stop it before it fully activates, we won't just lose this war. We'll lose everything. Sarah stood silent for a moment, the gravity of Reagan's words weighing heavily on her. The first victory had given humanity a glimmer of hope, but the enemy's revenge would be total, brutal, and calculated. We'll hit them where it hurts, Sarah said, her eyes narrowing with resolve. But we're going to need everything we've got left. Reagan, Lang, get every ship ready. We leave in 2 hours. The preparations began immediately. The Golden Fleet was battered, its numbers fewer than when they had first set out, but it was all humanity had left. The remaining ships were gathering, the survivors who had fought against impossible odds, driven by nothing more than the will to survive and fight for the future. For Earth. As the Golden Fleet jumped into hyperspace, the hum of the engines was a solemn reminder of how far they had come, and how much farther they still had to go. They weren't just fighting for survival now, they were fighting to ensure that humanity's legacy wouldn't be erased from existence. Sarah paced the command room, the lights flickering overhead as if the very ship itself were unsettled by the magnitude of what lay ahead. She'd lived through loss, war, and defeat, but this was different. The aliens had crossed the line, and now there was no turning back. Her thoughts were interrupted by Lang's voice. "Major, we're getting closer. The readings are strange. Their central hub is heavily shielded, but it's not just a military installation. This thing's massive. It's not just one base, it's a whole network." Sarah took a deep breath. "Then we'll need to breach it from multiple angles. Reagan, prepare the infiltration teams. We'll go in hard and fast. No time for subtlety." "I'll get it done," Reagan replied, already coordinating with the other officers. The next few hours felt like a blur. The tension aboard the Golden Fleet was palpable as they approached the heart of the enemy stronghold. Sarah stood at the helm, watching the dark mass of the alien hub grow larger on the screen. It wasn't just a military base, it was a fortress. And within it lay humanity's greatest threat. The command center was active, buzzing with chatter as orders were passed down and troops geared up for the final push. This wasn't just another battle. This was the culmination of everything they had fought for. The final act of defiance. As the Golden Fleet neared the heart of the hub, the alien ships began to converge, but this time, Sarah wasn't backing down. She had already made her decision. "Move in," she ordered. The fleet surged forward with incredible speed, breaking through the outer defenses with a ferocity that shook the enemy to its core. Alien ships tried to retaliate, but the Golden Fleet was relentless, pushing past their defenses and heading straight for the heart of the hub. It wasn't just a fight, it was a statement. The explosion came from deep within the alien stronghold, a violent burst of light that made the stars themselves flicker in response. The central hub began to crumble, and the hub of the galactic reckoning fell silent. Humanity had made its mark, and the aliens' vengeance had been stopped in its tracks. Sarah stood in the command room, watching the destruction unfold through the viewport. "It's over," she whispered. But even as the words left her mouth, she knew the fight for humanity's future wasn't over. Not yet. As the last of the alien ships were neutralized, Sarah knew that this victory, though hard-earned, would be only a chapter in a much longer war. But for now, for this moment, humanity had won. And that would have to be enough. For now.